So you mentioned, and I think a lot of our audience is PI attorneys, and they're the biggest question for most of them is how to get more cases, more leads, right?
Yeah.
And kind of feeding into that. And we're talking about marketing with Clio. The When you're targeting something so niche, you mentioned, of course, SEO, and you've got deep expertise yourself doing that. Like, what are some of the other approaches that you're doing to get these kind of unique areas? Because sometimes they're really difficult to even target through SEO. Like the
Sure.
queries they come in differently. They don't have the volume of like a head term like car accident lawyer.
Hmm.
So how do you approach marketing in these different areas for your practice?
I think it all starts with research. You have to find out what's going through people's minds, and how many people is that an issue for, right? So as you start searching these long tail keywords, you start getting an idea of how your potential client thinks. And I think that's my approach, is more from a psychological standpoint, is I want to know, what are they looking for, right? What can I do to help them get the answers they're looking for? Even if they come to my website and they get the answers that they're looking for, and then they go and talk to somebody else, that's okay. I've touched base with them before, and 3 or 4 years from now, maybe someone comes to that person and goes, hey, I got into an accident. Who knows? My name might come up, right? Or maybe that next time they get in a car accident or something happens, they find me, and maybe this time it's the second or third time they've seen me. And so that trust is there. I think we talked about it on that call we had the other day, that that the the data is out there for how many times it takes a person to see you, recognize you, and then trust you, right? Um, there's a reason billboards work. They're super expensive, but once somebody sees you a certain number of times, they begin to feel more comfortable with you. And I think it's really important in our practice that we just get seen. We don't have to get hired by everybody. We're lean right now. But the important thing for me is I want to put out great content. I want to give people the answers they're looking for, right? And I want to be there when they're ready to, ready to look around, right? So it's kind of my strategy.
A lot of what I heard there, and I think it's another Seth Godin book, is like, this is marketing. It's like everything that you're talking about is marketing. Some people
Mm-hmm.
equate it to just the billboard, but from what I hear from you, it's like it's the experience, it's the education, it's treating people right, it's making those sneezers
That's
like you
right.
mentioned, and I love every bit of that. The Another thing that goes in when I hear MedMal, just from I'm not an attorney. When I hear MedMal, I instantly think of extreme costs
Yeah.
from expert witnesses and even the negligent security. I think, first of all, I think both of these areas it's like, do the hard things that people aren't willing to do. It's like, you got to go out and get these investigators, and there's just additional complexities because not every single one of them, they're the same. It's not just a common rear end collision. So your paralegals and staff, you got to train them differently. So, when it comes to that and the doing the hard things and the capital allocation, like, how do you think of like investing into those types of cases? Because there's some risk, right? You may have tons of money in a case and it may not go the right direction.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. With dental, um, the damages, unless it's a death case, right, or some very, very, very severe case of infection, osteomyelitis. People have jaw infections where they end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. But other than that, there's a lot of good cases out there that are indefensible. Meaning, if you can screen all those calls, and if you do decide, hey, I'm going to start looking at dental malpractice cases, you're going to get a lot of calls for every good call. But if you get to the point where you can screen cases and you start understanding, and it goes through the algorithm that, hey, this is an indefensible case, you can keep the cost low by being smart that way. And I think that, whoever's listening, if this is at all of interest to you, The competition is so low. I got calls from Michigan today. I got calls from Minnesota today. I got calls from Indiana today. I don't have a license to practice law in any of those states, but there's so little competition that even the stuff I'm targeting in the states that I'm licensed, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, is coming up in these states all across the country. And it's because there aren't answers out there for people because nobody's doing this. So if you do decide to jump into this area of practice, you're going to get a lot of phone calls. And I think initially you're going to pick some bad cases. That's just something you have to be ready for. But once you start understanding what the insurance company needs, what boxes can you check for them where they say, okay, here we go. Then you can really find some good cases. I would say a lot better than your kind of medium range car accidents. You can find some really good cases where things go well. The insurance company, our costs are high, but the insurance company's costs are very high also. So they have to kind of make that calculation, that judgment call. So if you do have a case that is, what I would call indefensible, then you're sitting on a great case.
Yeah, and I guess with the more data, then you can use that data. That helps you as well. And like you said, you have the best expert witnesses because of your history, because of your background, and you're at the top of Bloom's taxonomy in this field, so you can identify who can really move the needle, and you can speak with experience in court, which is this. It's different and it's powerful. Another big component is, look, we know how important data is. We know how important consistency is, and and the client experience, and how do you manage it, right? You got calls all over the country. Like, is it going in the CRM and you have referral partners out? Is it, how are you managing all of the intake, and are there any tools that you recommend? And give me just some idea of some of the technology you're using at the firm.
Yeah, so we're using Clio, right? And we also have virtual receptionists. So if we're ever busy, or if we just don't have time for calls, people call in. They talk a little bit. That's transcribed into a couple of paragraphs, and we get that in an email, and it helps us kind of understand what's going on. It helps us be prepared for the the touch base phone call. And that's really how we manage it. We get a lot of calls every week for dental, and trying to figure out what to do with that. Unfortunately, a lot of the times you have to say, look, this isn't something I can help you with, and I'm really sorry. Here's some options. Again, the problem is that in a lot of these states, there's just nobody I can refer someone to. And I've had great cases that I really just couldn't do anything with it. And it's a shame because, those are some good, I've had a lot of these good indefensible cases come through, and I don't know who to send them to, but overall, we're pretty solidly set on Clio for using everything that keeps track of everything, and how we manage our referral network. I'm just always looking for people that'll take those cases, and I keep them in a list, and this is who we talk to.